The Button Man of Linehold, 7B. You ever feel a sound instead of hearing it? Like a hum that's not in the air, but somewhere behind your eyes. That's what I get sometimes. Not often. Just enough to know it's not in my head. It's in the bones, like pressure. Last night, it crept up again, short, sharp. And right after that, the microwave reset itself. I used to work line inspection for the Trans-North Pipeline, late 90s. Wasn't a glamorous gig, but I liked it. I'd run checks between pump stations out in the Yukon, riding a snowmobile for hours at a time. I'd sleep in prefab huts that smelled like diesel and old socks, eat instant noodles, log pressure readings, and call them in on a shortwave. Nobody bothered you out there. The quiet had its own rhythm. In February of '96, I got sent out to a site called Linehold 7B. Nobody talked about it much. It had been decommissioned for years, some rerouting project, but for some reason, a few old sensors out there were still online. Usually, they just ping static, but one morning the pressure sensor flatlined completely. No error code, no power failure, just zero. They called it an anomaly and asked for someone to go check it in person. I said I'd go. Told myself it was for the overtime, but truth is, I wasn't sleeping too well back in town either. Sometimes being out in the cold feels easier than being around people. The sled ride took just over 6 hours. I cut north through spruce forest that looked more like silhouettes than trees. Couldn't tell where the horizon ended and the sky began. Just layers of grey pressing down. Static on the radio the whole way, until maybe 2/3 in, when I picked up a short burst of Tragically Hip. Just a few seconds, then gone. Didn't think much of it. I found the station at dusk. It sat low in a clearing like it was trying not to be noticed. The trees around it were stunted, thinned out. Snow covered the roof, except for one corner, where it had melted back in a perfect circle. There wasn't a vent up there, no heat exhaust, just clean, bare metal. Inside it was colder than outside, and quiet, the kind of quiet that feels deliberate. I set up my gear, sleeping bag, ration kit, propane heater, and flicked the breakers. Lights buzzed to life. Microwave clicked on. The usual prefab junk, gauges, bunk bed, cracked plastic chair. But in the back corner, behind a stack of dented supply drums, I noticed something I didn't recognize. A door. Heavy steel, flush with the wall. No handle, no keypad. Just a round, black button mounted beside it, about the size of a coffee mug. Smooth, featureless. Not part of the standard layout. I stared at it for a long time. There was a moment, just a second, where I almost touched it. Not because I was curious, because I wanted the humming to stop. I could already feel it starting. Instead, I backed off and made a coffee. The gauges were acting up. The pressure wasn't zero, it was fluctuating. Way too high one moment, then dropping off again. Like something was moving through the line, but there was no vibration, no feedback, no noise in the pipe. Just readings that didn't make sense. I told myself I'd check again in the morning. No use chasing ghosts. That night, I dreamed I was underground. Not in a tunnel exactly. It looked more like an artery. The walls flexed with every breath I took. The air was thick, warm. Lights moved above me, pinpricks that twitched and jittered like insects behind glass. Every path I took curved back to the same place, a circular chamber like a wound that never healed. And in the center of it stood him, the Button Man. He wasn't tall, so much as stretched. Joints too far apart. Skin flat and matte like someone left him out in the sun for too long. No face, no movement. But when I looked at him, He turned toward me anyway. I woke up sweating. My sleeping bag felt too tight. The microwave read 2:13 a.m. I checked my watch. Battery was dead. It was new. When I got up to get water, I noticed my boots were wet. Not damp, soaked, like I'd walked through fresh snow. But I hadn't gone outside. There were no tracks, just untouched white around the station. I didn't sleep again. By morning, the button had changed. It was glowing, faintly, just enough to catch in your peripheral vision. The color reminded me of a bruise right before it turns yellow. When I stepped close, I felt it. Not heat, not vibration. Something heavier, like standing too near a power transformer. I stayed there longer than I should have. The wall behind it felt soft, like it wasn't metal anymore, like it could breathe. Eventually, I stepped back. My nose was bleeding. I cleaned up and tried to radio back. Static, then silence. Then a voice, soft and clear. "Do not open the room." I said hello. Asked who it was. Got nothing but dead air. The rest of that day, I stayed on the other side of the station. Reread pressure logs I'd already logged. Ate stale crackers. Every so often, I'd hear a metallic creak from the sealed door, like someone leaning on the other side. I didn't go near it. That night the wind picked up, rattled the walls hard enough to shake dust from the ceiling. Around 3 a.m., I saw movement through the window, a shape, still and tall, maybe 20 feet away. I turned on the interior light. When I looked again, it was closer. No face, no movement, no sound. The wind had smoothed the snow flat, but there weren't any footprints behind it. I shut the blinds, sat on the floor with the propane heater burning my shins and the crowbar across my lap. Didn't sleep. At dawn, I checked the door again. The button was still there, but it had sunk halfway into the wall, like the metal had gone soft around it. The glow was gone, but the shape was unmistakable. I reached out, touched the surface. Warm. Not electric warm, body warm. That's when I left. I packed up fast and rode back through a squall. Wind screamed the whole way. Visibility was garbage. Nearly flipped the sled twice. Didn't stop. When I got back to the main station, I told them it was a false reading. Lines dead. Must have been a software fault. They didn't ask questions, just logged it and moved on. Line hold 7B got torn down a year later, quietly. No announcement, no reassignment. Far as I know, they just scrubbed the coordinates, like it was never there. I still dream of the tunnel sometimes, still see the button man, standing dead center, not moving, not speaking. But the worst part isn't the dream, it's the hum, the one I can't hear, the one I feel. Sometimes I wake up and the microwave is blinking, 2:13, again and again, like it's stuck or remembering. I didn't press the button. But sometimes, I wonder if something else did. The toll. I've got 3 shifts left, then I'm done. Early retirement. Officially, it's budget cuts. But I think someone finally realized there's no point manning a toll booth for a bridge nobody uses anymore. 17 years working graveyard out here. Near Kong, if that means anything to you. Midnight to 6. Just me, the heater that rattles when it gets bored, and a cassette radio that only plays Enya now. The eject button's been jammed since 2003. After a while, I started to like the silence between tracks more than the music. It was April 17th, 2 years ago. I only remember because my birthday's the day before. That night was the usual, quiet, still, not a single car. I was halfway through a sandwich, radio murmuring something from a day without rain, and the road was dead silent. Then the lights flickered. Nothing dramatic, just a little pulse, like the booth was taking a breath. I looked up, expecting a truck maybe, but I didn't hear anything. No tires on gravel, no engine. Just a soft glow moving up the road. Headlights, kind of. They didn't beam forward like normal. They hovered, muted and strange, like they were trapped behind frosted glass. A vehicle rolled into view, slow, steady, and stopped at the booth. It looked like an ambulance at first. It had the outline. Boxy back, white body, light bar up top. But it had that wrong, stretched quality, like someone had tried to pull it into a new shape while it was still soft. The angles sagged, the roof line sloped, everything dripped. The whole vehicle was soaking wet, water streaming down the windows, the doors, the bumper. Seaweed clung to the grille, but there were no puddles. The water just vanished when it touched the ground. I cracked the window. The air smelled faintly of old water, stagnant, like a rain barrel left too long in the sun. The driver leaned out. He wore a paramedic's uniform, green with white trim, no insignia, just fabric. His face was hard to look at, not deformed, just blurred. The light hit him, but didn't catch. Then he said, "You owe the toll." But it wasn't his voice. It was my ex-wife's. Same rhythm, same tired cadence from when we still talked. There was no payment, nothing in his hand, no card, no coin. He didn't blink. I raised the barrier. He rolled forward, disappearing into the dark without a sound. No tires, no engine, just the faint hiss of water drying from pavement. The next night, same time, 2:37 a.m. I checked. The vehicle came back. This time it looked worse, warped, sagging. The metal skin seemed loose. Salt lines stained the back doors. Fog rolled inside the cab like it was breathing. A slow pulse in the windows. He stopped again. "You owe the toll," he said, this time in my mother's voice. She died 5 years ago. I didn't say a word, just lifted the barrier. Every night after that, it returned. Always 2:37 a.m., always drifting in without sound. It changed a little each time. Warped metal, pulsing lights, twitching panels that looked like skin. One night it left behind thin white flakes that formed branching patterns on the road. I watched them spread like frost growing in reverse. When I touched one, my fingers went cold and tingled for hours. The booth started changing too. The walls felt damp even when the air was dry. The heater clicked like a metronome, but only when the vehicle was near. Mold bloomed behind the drawer and dried into hard flakes that dimmed the light if they floated too close. One night, the driver didn't speak at all, just stared. I opened the drawer out of habit and found something inside. It was the size of a thumb, translucent, like jelly, speckled all over with tiny black dots. I couldn't tell if they were holes or eyes. When I leaned closer, it twitched. I locked the drawer without touching it. Later, I heard something crawling behind the radio, wet, deliberate. It stopped when I looked. I asked to be reassigned. My supervisor offered me a week off instead, said I was due for rest. They sent a temp to cover my shift. College kid, new uniform, full of opinions about traffic systems. I didn't say anything. Let him enjoy the booth. That night, I parked up the hill across from the bridge, just watched. 2:37 came and went. No headlights, no vehicle. The booth lights stayed solid. Next night, I came back. 2:37 sharp. The glow returned, but this time, the vehicle stopped just outside the light. No voice, no movement, just presence. I stayed seated, watched. The windshield was fogged, but I could make out a shape in the driver's seat. Even through the haze, I recognized the outline. It was me, not just someone who looked like me. My face, my coat, my tired posture, resting one elbow on the window. The shape tilted its head slightly, exactly like I do when I'm trying to understand something I don't want to hear. In the back, another figure sat still on the gurney, too fogged to see clearly, but I had the feeling it was watching me too. The barrier lifted without me touching it. They drove through. Since then, it only comes once a year. April 17th, 2:37 a.m. Always the same. The vehicle stops just short of the booth, hidden in the edge of shadow. It waits, then it leaves. Last year, I left a camcorder recording all night. Motion sensor, infrared, everything. The footage showed nothing. Just me, sitting at the desk, raising the barrier for no one, talking to no one, for 6 minutes. But when I checked the drawer the next morning, it was wet inside. Sometimes the booth fogs up from the outside, even on warm nights. Once, I found a fingerprint in the mold on the ceiling. It matched mine. And the tea, sometimes it tastes like the sea, not brine, not salt, just sea. Last year, the driver said something else, just once. You were the first shadow to drown. Then he drove off. The tire marks dried into branching lines that looked like veins. They stayed there for 2 weeks before vanishing. I haven't told anyone. Not my brother. Not the new lad they're training to replace me. What could I even say? There's a vehicle only I can see. It's unraveling into something that thinks it's me. It's learning my voice, my hands. It knows my name. I've got 3 shifts left, like I said. After that, I'm moving inland. No bridges, no rivers, no booths. Every year, same time, 2:37 a.m. And I always hear the barrier lifting for someone. Dead Man's Ice. I still get the invoices, always in winter, always without a sender. No envelope, just a folded grey sheet in the mailbox, like it worked its way in. Same format every time. My name up top, a set of coordinates below, and a strip of beige tape stuck to the corner. Sometimes the tape has something written on it, sometimes not. The last one said, "Tray number 3 confirmed." I burn them when they show up, but I always open them first. It started back in 2003. I was 24, working glacial freight for a seasonal outfit out of Churchill, Manitoba. We hauled carved ice, real ancient stuff, to bars, art shows, and rich types who thought plain cubes were beneath them. Crystal clear blocks, cut to specification, packed in insulated crates. That week, I was solo. 2 hotel deliveries, one to a sculptor down in the Par. Nothing fancy. I had 4 blocks in the trailer, one of them tagged red, which meant special handling. Dispatch never explained what made a block special. I didn't ask. I remember the tragically hip playing as I crossed onto the ice road, in violet light. Had that looping the whole trip. The sky was low and silver, the kind of cold that gets into your bones and sits there. About halfway through the loop, dispatch called me directly. That was unusual. Guy on the line told me there'd been a late request. Rush job. Private client. Coordinates only. No name, no company, just a location. They want paper trail only, he said. No need to log it digitally. I should have asked more questions. Instead, I said yeah, punched the coordinates into the truck's GPS, and figured I'd deal with it quick. The turnoff was easy to miss. Just a tight path cut through the trees, packed snow on top of frozen lake. I followed it for maybe 20 minutes before the woods opened into a clearing I didn't recognize. There was no cabin, no client, just a glass box, 4 steel-framed walls, floor to ceiling, all transparent but for one side, which was bolted over with matte sheet metal. A yellow light glowed inside, like the kind you get in industrial freezers. Out front was a sled, stainless steel, low to the ground, perfectly molded to hold a cube. It was already anchored to the ice. I knocked on the glass, waited. Nothing. Looked inside. The place was empty. Floor vents, a small generator in the corner, and a low pedestal in the center. The kind you'd use to display something. There was nothing on it. No movement. No sound. I wanted to be gone. I unstrapped the red-tagged crate and slid it toward the sled. The crate lid came off with a hiss of trapped cold. That's when I noticed the shape. It was deep in the block, maybe halfway through. A spiral, or maybe a curled figure. It wasn't clear enough to name, but it had texture. Smooth ridges. A crease that might have been a mouth or a fold. It reminded me of something fetal, but bigger, and it was close to the center. Except every time I moved, it seemed just a little closer to the surface. I wiped frost from the ice with my glove and leaned in. That's when I saw myself, but not right. The reflection moved with me at first. Then it paused, a beat late. Then it smiled. I wasn't smiling. And its teeth looked wrong. Too narrow, too straight. I stumbled back, nearly slipped. My breath caught in my throat like a dry cough. I told myself it was light distortion. I was tired. I hadn't eaten. I finished pushing the crate into the sled, keeping my eyes on the ground. Then I saw the tag, taped to the inside wall of the crate, half covered by insulation. Beige packing tape, slightly yellowed, handwritten. Property of my full name. Return to sender if thawed. I just stared at it. It wasn't just the message, it was the handwriting. I didn't recognize it, but something in the loops of the R's and the tail of the Y made my stomach tighten. It felt like mine. Not now, but maybe mine then, or later. I pulled out my sat phone. Took 4 tries to get a connection. The voice answered before the first full ring. Go ahead with the drop, it said. It wasn't someone I knew. Flat, but not robotic, like someone trying to sound casual and overshooting it. I asked who I was speaking to. The voice repeated my question, word for word. Not mocking, not echoing, just copying. I hung up, didn't finish the delivery, left the crate where it sat, and got back in the truck. No restrap, no final check. I drove 16 hours straight, stopped once for gas, slept in the cab, engine running, seatbelt still on. Woke up with my jaw locked and my legs cramping. Never logged the drop, never asked about it again. 2 weeks later, I checked the dispatch system. The coordinates were gone, no mention of the job. Then I saw a notice online. That stretch of ice road had collapsed. Half a mile of lake just cracked open and swallowed it. No injuries, no explanation. 2 winters later, I got the first invoice. Same grey paper. My name. Coordinates. The delivery site was a hunting shack that had burned down the previous year. A scrap of tape was stuck to the bottom. No writing, just the tape. Next one came in 2007. Different location. That one said, "Don't let it melt." I've had 5 of them now. This past January, I opened my mailbox and found the most recent. Tray number 3, confirmed. Here's the part I haven't told anyone. I stopped using my ice tray at the start of the year. Just left it sitting there. Silicone 1 makes long, rectangular cubes. Holds 6. I always use the back 3 slots. Routine. But after that last invoice, I started checking it again. Not refilling, just looking. Some mornings, I count 7 cubes. I take one out, let it melt in the sink. The inside is hollow, not air, a shape, like a smooth pocket, the imprint of something curled up and recently removed. Other times, there are only 5 cubes. And once, this was last week, I found a cube already melted. The tray was closed. Nothing else touched. Next to it, on the back wall of the freezer, was a strip of tape. Same kind, beige, slightly curled at the corners. In marker, it said, "Tray number 2 did not hold." That's when I started burning the invoices the second they arrived, but I keep the tape. Not sure why. Maybe I think it's better to have it here with me than wherever it would go if I threw it out. I know how all this sounds, but I know what I saw in that block. I know the reflection wasn't mine, and I know I never filled those trays. Something followed me back, or maybe something was waiting here the whole time. Either way, I'm not delivering anything ever again.